All right, so let's go ahead and give this next problem a shot. And if you've tried this out, live in real time, or have had the chance to pause and try it already, and you selected answer choice C, I'm gonna have to say that C is incorrect. Now, I'm going to go through the problem, and the point at which you see, no pun intended, the point at which you see your mistake, I want you to shout it out in the chat box, in the comments, if you're watching this somewhere, but go ahead. Here we go. Step one, let's read the question. The question reads, how many parts remain unused? Okay, real quick, everybody. Real quick. If we read the sentence again, how many parts? Not how many parts were used, but how many parts remain unused? Okay, I'm going to pause. It's going to be an awkward 5 seconds. But does anybody want to shout out the mistake that they have made? Yeah, the word remains, meaning we might be subtracting at the end. We might need to subtract to see how much is left. And this is a 100% example of how test anxiety can have you miss some things that are right there in your face because we're so focused on the numbers and calculations that we forego actually ensuring that we're reading and processing the right information. So yeah, I was really excited that a lot of you guys chose C because it's a great teaching opportunity and we can all have a little bit of a laugh, right? So hopefully nobody took my diabolical laughing sinisterly. We're good. Let's go ahead and have some fun. So we want to know how many parts remain unused. So let's check out what we have here. It says, in a robotics workshop, 60% of the 200 available parts are used for a build. Let's write that down. Let me write that down nice and clearly. Let me write down a line here. So it says 60% of the 200 available parts. So 60% times 200 parts equals, everybody, when we are used, the word are is the same as the word is. And so what comes after that is the result. The ones that are used for a build equals used. So with that, everybody, here we go. 60% times 200 is going to equal the result. We're looking for the result. But the only problem is this result doesn't actually represent our answer. And there's two ways that you can go about this. And I'll show you both of those ways. The first way is just by going ahead and calculating, but understanding that we're going to get the number of used. So here we go. If we do it that way, let's translate that percentage into a decimal, 0.6. 0.60 is the same exact number. We're good. But we'll have 0.6 multiplied by 200. And what do we get from there? Let's zoom in and let's do it. 200 times 0.6. 0 times 6 is going to be 0. 0 times 6 is going to be 0. And then 2 times 6 is going to be 12. And there you go. We'll have 1200. But everybody, how many times are we moving that decimal place back? Yeah, in this specific case, it's just going to be once. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and move it once right there. And the answer here is 120. But is it really? It's not. Because remember, everybody, what did that result represent? What did that result represent? Yeah, that represents the number of parts that were used. And so because of that, everybody, if it's 120 used parts, but we want to get the number of unused parts, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to subtract, exactly. We're supposed to subtract. Think about it like this, everybody. Think about it like this. We had 200 total parts, and if we subtract 120 parts that were used, we are going to get the number of parts that were unused, and that is going to be 80 parts. once we subtract. The correct answer, everybody, is actually going to be A, 80 unused parts. So notice that one thing, that one keyword made a major difference. But I think we can all take a step back and be like, yo, we're actually pretty close to understanding this, because I knew I was confident about the calculation. Now, albeit we calculated the wrong numbers, but I was still confident in the calculations. But the problem here was, again, the key words. Remember how I just said this a couple of moments ago. Word problems are twofold. Step 1 is translating the English into math, and step 2 is actually calculating the math. You cannot succeed without both. We have to do both properly, and that's where misreading the question, it's going to cost you in this sense. My party people, does that make sense to you before I show you the second way of doing this problem? Sweet, sounds good. So let me show you the other way that we could have done this. So the other way could have been, let's say that you realized from the very beginning, that they asked you how many parts remain unused, and you knew that the 60% represents the amount that was used. If you would have realized that, you can use your knowledge of percentages. Quick question, everybody. What percentage represents the entire thing? All of it, the total? Oh man, y'all are good. Yeah, the percentage that represents the total, the whole amount, is 100%. And so here's what we can do. Here's the second option that we have. Let me just move this over here. Let me actually just make this smaller if I could. Now let me just kind of block this part off so I can show you the other way of doing this. So everybody, if we know that 100% represents the total and 60% represents the amount that was used, everybody, what percentage here represents the amount that was unused? Yeah, that's pretty simple, right? 100 minus 60%, that's 40%. Exactly. That's the amount that was unused. And guess what, everybody? We're going to use our knowledge here. The percent that you apply is the result that you get. If I apply 40%, it represents unused. The number I'll get, the result that I'll get, is the amount that was unused. That's how we have to think about it, everybody. So now I can set this up here and say 40% multiplied by the 200 total parts equals my unused. And this makes the problem so much faster, so much easier, so much cleaner. Here we go. Translate that decimal or that percentage into a decimal. That's 0.4. It's also 0.40. Either way is fine. We multiply that by 200, and that's going to give us our answer. Watch and learn. Here we go. 200 times 0.4. 0 times 4, that's 0. 0 times 4, that's 0. 2 times 4, and that's 8. How many times are we moving that decimal place over, everybody? One time. Just one time. Boom. And that is 80. And there we go. 80 unused parts. And we can get the final answer immediately if we understood the question sentence. So, with that said, who here kind of felt that secondhand embarrassment of being so confident that 120 was the answer? And because of that, you now are going to be looking out a lot harder than you did before for those question sentences. There we go. Cool. Cool. In the words of the great Ted Lasso, I cannot be your mentor if I don't torment you every now and then. So there you go. So with that, let's go ahead and take a pause here.